All right. Welcome to From a Southside Point of View. I'm your host, Treasy, and of course, I've got with me Josh Nelson from Sox Machine. We're going to talk some Star Wars. We might talk a little bit of another franchise really quickly to start things off. And Josh, this episode, I feel like we got some good action. I think we got some good action. I'm not sure how far the story progressed in this episode, but we'll get into it. But before we get into it, there's been this thing going around on the internet. People talking about Dave Filoni talking about Ahsoka and Ahsoka, the gray version and the white version, and that comparison to Gandalf. And I keep hearing it, right? I keep hearing like these guys who break down videos and these guys who talk about Star Wars in general going like, I think it's a great comparison, or I don't see the comparison. And I have no idea what they're talking about because I've never seen Lord of the Rings. So I was hoping that you could spend a minute or two just catching me up on what I'm missing out on here, because I feel kind of like an idiot.
Well, you should feel like an idiot because I can't believe you've never seen Lord of the Rings. Like, arguably the best trilogy of movies all time. And we love Star Wars. And I love New Hope, to Empire Strikes Back, to Return of the Jedi. But Fellowship, to Two Towers, Return of the King, I love those movies and still love them. And I think a big reason why, Treasy, is that I was in like high school when those movies came out. So that was the big thing to do in December that everybody was looking forward to, is when those movies were released. So your question about Gandalf. So Gandalf is this wizard who really leads the stories that are going on, not just in Lord of the Rings, but also in The Hobbit as well.
Okay.
And in the Fellowship of the Ring, as a wizard, he takes on, let's call this cave demon monster, a Belrog. Okay. And that's the whole, I'm sure you've heard, you shall not pass.
Right, yeah.
You probably heard that.
I've seen the memes. I've seen like the GIFs. You know, I'm familiar with that part of it, you know?
So when Gandalf does that, he breaks a bridge, and it forces him and this monster to fall in the depths of this cave, and somehow they end up on some type of tower on top of a mountain. That's not important how they got there. But what is important is that Gandalf the Grey won the battle against the Belrog. However, he died during the battle.
Okay.
And in Two Towers, Gandalf is resurrected to return to the task. Like, his life on Middle Earth is not over yet. He must accomplish what was set out for him. It's unclear, at least in the movies, who is setting him out on this mission, but he comes back more powerful, has a little amnesia, forgets what his name was until Aragorn in the movies mentions the name Gandalf, as in like he was in disbelief that he's actually seeing Gandalf back in the flesh. And Gandalf says, oh yes, that's what they used to call me, Gandalf the Grey. I'm Gandalf the White. And he returns in the time to turn the tide is how Gandalf puts it. Gandalf saves Theoden from Rohan. He's the king of Rohan. That's a bunch of horses. It's very important in the main battle in Gondor. Gandalf the White sets things into motion to counterattack the Eye and the orcs about to attack on Gondor. So that's Gandalf the White. He becomes a more powerful wizard when he's resurrected. This is really there's a lot more to this, Trees. You really should see the movies.
All right, look, you already sold me that I probably don't want to see these movies because it sounds like the whole goal of it is to become white, which is I'm not really a fan of it, all right? But no. I actually I should see these movies. I've you know, like, I don't know anyone who dislikes them. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, so like I think that, you know, like, obviously, this should be on my list of things to do in the off season. But my question here is, like, do you see this kind of relationship to Ahsoka and Ahsoka eventually becoming more like the Gandalf character, like that resurrects? Like, is there something there or is this, is this very loose?
I think it's incredibly loose because Tolkien, when he wrote Lord of the Rings, had Jesus on his mind for Gandalf.
Okay.
Like, Gandalf is Jesus in Lord of the Rings. Ahsoka's not Jesus in Star Wars. And this is a debate. Like, was she resurrected from her battle at Darth Vader when Ezra, spoiler alert, in the World Between Worlds pulled her from that portal and into the present, which the present at that time was Ezra's present? Is that the resurrection moment that maybe Dave Filoni is trying to hint at? And did Ahsoka suddenly become more powerful? Or is it just because she's just older now and she's more wise, and when you get older, you have a stronger connection to the Force because of just time and developing your skills? I have a lot of questions for Dave if he is trying to make Ahsoka now in this series his version of Gandalf the White. I don't see it. I think it's a pretty loose connection, Treasy.
Okay. That's good, because that means that I could ignore these things that I'm hearing, these videos that are referring to this, much like I've ignored the Lord of the Rings franchise for the past 20, 30 years, whatever it's been.
Yeah, that's a mistake. You should that you should correct. But yeah, the ignoring the Ahsoka Gandalf comparisons. I mean, I think what eventually is going to happen for the rest of this series is that we're going to compare Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker in their ability to mentor someone.
See, I'm interested here, and let's get into the next topic, because we got to talk about Sabine's training. And we watched her train, and by the way, I'm becoming a huge fan of Hu Yang. This is easily my favorite character so
David
far.
Tennant. Yeah.
Yes, because David Tennant's awesome already,
Yeah.
right? And then he's just like, I'm only being honest. Imagine if you went through your life being as honest as Hu Yang. How many people would hate you, right? Like so I kind of love that, and it's kind of this interesting scenario of like Sabine, who we've known to be a very powerful character in her own right, being broken down only and hopefully to be built back up. But watching the training, obviously we're getting flashes of Luke Skywalker when we see her with the mask on, right? It's this is Obi-Wan training Luke on the ship. Luke a little bit faster of a learner, let's just say. But what did you think about this training scene, and what did you think that maybe like some of this might be foreshadowing for what we're going to see in the rest of the series?
So a couple of things. One, the whole lightsaber training. Again, we talked about this in the last episode. Sabine is a Mandalorian. She has a fighting skills background. So training her on some lightsaber techniques is going to be possible. And I like with Huyang and the training and using the light, able to measure the cuts and the blocks. Really cool way of adding to the lore of training Jedi, to be able to gauge on just how she was faring in the training courses, like how accurate she was with the blocks and cuts. I thought that was pretty cool. So I think it is possible to trade Sabine to be better with the lightsaber. Now, Ahsoka's trying to go further, and this is where I think you have this great debate between a Jedi droid who, for how old is Huyang?
Hundreds of years old.
Has to be, right?
Yeah.
Because thousands of years of data.
Like, he's been in charge of lightsabers for like a really, really long time. He shows up in Clone Wars. That's like where you first see him.
So for that debate with Huyang's she's not going to be able to use the Force. She would have been the worst student. Again, there's a part of me that does not want Sabine Wren to move that cup on the table, Treasy. I don't need Sabine to be able to master the Force. And there's a part of me that doesn't want her to master the Force. But I think it'd be cool if Ahsoka can help Sabine maybe not use the Force, but to quiet her mind and be able to focus in the present and block everything else out. If that enables her to be a better warrior, because having a Mandalorian hyper-focused on fighting Chirizi we know could be one of the best warriors in the galaxy and a great wingman, or in this case, wingwoman, a great bodyguard for a Jedi.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I don't really want to like. I'm fine if like there's like this little tinge of she can slightly move that cup eventually, right? Or like there's like this slight connection, right? But like what I want to see more than that, and what they foreshadow in this, so there's a scene when they're training, and she tells her that anger and frustration can easily lead to the power that she's looking for, but it leaves you unbalanced. And it's one of those things where without using the Force, if Sabine just understands how it functions and how it works and the dark side and the light, that there could be an opportunity for her to have an advantage when she fights Shin later. And if she can catch her off balance, being a great Mandalorian warrior against someone who is off balance because they're so driven by anger and frustration, like that to me was a foreshadowing of this is how Sabine can win. It's not there's days before this is going to happen. There's not enough time for a Rocky-esque montage where she suddenly gets good with handling the Force, right? And so that was one thing that I felt like this is foreshadowing that. And I like it because, to your point, it doesn't have her mastering Force sensitivity.
And to be consistent in Star Wars, in the Obi-Wan series, we saw this in his duel with Anakin. Anakin is more gifted than Obi-Wan Kenobi with the lightsaber. But Obi-Wan Kenobi was more in tune of his actions and his thoughts and his self. And that is why Obi-Wan Kenobi continued to whoop Anakin's ass. No matter what timeline in Star Wars, is that eventually he got the best of Anakin's emotions, and Anakin's emotions got the best of him. And that's how Obi-Wan Kenobi was able to defeat Anakin Skywalker multiple times. And to your point, that would be consistent with other aspects of the Star Wars timeline. And we all know in these types of franchises that consistency is key. And if you don't have consistency, Marvel, you're going to just rip everything up, and people are going to be in disbelief, and people are going to start tuning you out. So I really like the point that you made there. Like, yeah, I could see where that is the ultimate lesson for Ahsoka to Sabine, is to remain balanced at all costs.
I do worry that there was another foreshadowing, though, and I want to get your take on this. So there's a part when they're sitting down, and Sabine is basically saying, I thought the urgency of the situation would help with accelerating the training, right? Yeah. With like, and Ahsoka says, that's not how it works. This absolutely, to me, feels like a kind of Luke and Rey moment where it's not about lifting rocks, but guess what? Later on, it's going to be about lifting rocks. And so my thought here is that, yeah, it's not going to accelerate her training. She's not going to suddenly learn, but I think she's going to have a moment like Ezra, when Ezra first used the Force. So Kanan was in danger, and he like just blew people out of the way to save him.
Yeah.
The introduction of a character in Jason Syndulla makes me think that there's going to be a situation when Jason is in danger and Sabine connects with the Force and does something outrageous to save him. And so I don't know if I want that to happen. Like to our earlier points of like, I don't really want her to be that in tune with the Force. Do you think that that's something that could happen?
No, I think that situation may happen in this series, Terezi, but I think it's Jason seeing his mom, Hera, in trouble, and Jason saving Hera using the Force, maybe in front of Ahsoka, and Hera asking Ahsoka, "Can you train Jason?" And Ahsoka telling Hera, "I can't take on multiple Padawans. However, I know a guy."
Oh, no.
And yes, instead of Grogu, Jason Syndulla becomes Luke Skywalker's first student in the school.
You're sentencing Jason to death is what you're doing.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. I mean, join Dad.
Good job, Jason. You're going to be a Jedi. And then Ben Solo's going to cut your head off.
Yep. It do be that way.
Look at this. People love this idea. They love the idea of Ben Solo murdering Jason Syndulla. You guys are all terrible people. All right, there's another Easter egg here that I really wanted to touch on, and when we see Mon Mothma and we see Hamato Ziono, and he's giving all this kind of back talk against Hera and kind of challenging Hera in her quest for Thrawn and obviously Ezra, and I didn't like this, and here's why I didn't like this.
Interesting.
So we know Hamato Ziono isn't big into rebellions and this type of thing. We see him in Star Wars Resistance as Kazuda's father, and he doesn't like that Kazuda's out there with the Resistance force. But he's not a bad guy, right? Like, they had an opportunity, they did in the books, to really make you wonder: is this guy in league with Thrawn? Is this guy in league with the Imperial Remnant? We kind of know he's not. Right, and that kind of that. I don't love that because I think the way that he acted with Hera, you really got a vibe of who's this guy working for?
Right.
Right. Now that said, that other lady,
definitely,
I think she's with the Empire. She's the next person to yell for the Empire. So I don't trust her. So the fact that we do know something about Hamato makes me not trust that other lady. What do you think about this scene, and what do you think about kind of the pushback from the council in general?
Well, I think what it sets up again is an elaborate ploy. When people ask, watching the new sequels, how did the First Order come to be, and why is General Leia leading a resistance, we're going to see the problems with a democracy or problems with a republic. Not to get too real with the lives that we lead, but this is the stuff that happens. It's why can't we fix the potholes in our city? Well, you gotta get permission from 3 departments and the city council to greenlight the money to be spent, and all of a sudden it's August, and here comes fall and winter, and the potholes were never fixed, and now we're just gonna have more potholes. That's just a real example of the crap that we as people deal with living in a democracy and a republic. And when you have this type of slow process, you have this type of red tape, you want everyone's voices heard. That's a far cry in how an empire works. And that's why some people don't mind living in an empire, because it's much straightforward. It's more streamlined because you have people that are, you have one guy calling the shots, and as we have learned throughout history, that one guy gets way too much power to their head and terrible things end up happening. That's why more societies live in a republic and democracy than empires these days. So I don't know what Hamato's end game is. Maybe this is a guy who just doesn't like conflict, and he doesn't like escalation, and he likes living in whatever peace that his bubble is part of. And if there are things that are going to be challenging the bubble or the people that he represents, he's going to be against it. But in this scene and what we have seen in The Mandalorian season 3, we're starting to see in how the Empire's coming back and how they are able to get through the cracks of the New Republic in the Foundation and not just survive, but thrive, start mounting a comeback plan as they continue to acquire more insight on how the New Republic works and how it functions and what the weaknesses are. And that will allow not only Thrawn to come back, but eventually make this connection, no matter how strong or loose it is, with the sequel movies.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. And yeah, it does feel like it, it does feel a little bit like real life, right? That war's way over there. We've had enough war and catastrophe.
Yeah.
We don't want any more of that. There's a lot of that and I think Ziono's a lot like that. And if he's mirroring the character in the books in the original Thrawn trilogy, it's similar to that. It's not a malevolent intent. It's just I don't want to be in a war.
Right.
I don't want to like actively seek out conflict. And you could see that like it's not an unreasonable path. Now we know what's going on. We know the whole story, right? Like,
Right.
but if you were just viewing it from his side, someone's like, look, we're going to follow these space whales, all right? And we're going to find this guy in another galaxy. It's happening. You'd be like, all right, you maybe had too many edibles. That's an insane story you're telling me. All right, but so they do take off and they go track down Morgan Elspeth without anybody to help. And we have this incredible dogfight. This is the Star Wars I love. Actual Star Wars. And I thought the dogfight was great. And I did like the infighting to start between Ahsoka and Sabine. I like that theirs turns to more of a reasonable relationship between two people. And then you see the counter in Morgan and Shin. So I really liked all those pieces. What did you think of the dogfight in general?
They clearly went to the used car lot to get their ships. I couldn't. Do you remember where these ships came from? Because they're familiar with me, but I forgot like what movie or what show we've seen them put.
There are to your point, it does look pieced together. So like there's things from these ships that look a little bit like what we saw in the prequels. There's some of the pieces of these ships that look a little bit like what we see in Resistance, what they're flying around in, and some of these just look like goddamn junk. So like it's like they is it Doug Chang who does all the art?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
They're just like mash it all together. Just we want these people breaking down the videos to have no idea where these are from because they're from everywhere. That's kind of what it felt like. That's just like the aliens. I'm like, I've definitely seen these aliens that they're fighting with, and I don't know from where because they look like a little bit like every other alien that we've seen throughout Star Wars.
And I like, again, the snippy commentary between Morgan and Shin. Like, technically they're on the same side, but Morgan gives Shin crap of like, I can't believe they're still alive. I can't believe they're still flying at me. Don't worry now. I've got it. And, she's got these cannons and it kind of works. They clip them, but they're not dead. And Shin's like, congratulations, you almost had them. Now I'm going to take care of Ahsoka and Sabine, and I will accomplish this task. Like, you still have, like, they're still butting heads right now, and I like that. Shin clearly does not trust Morgan, but must follow Morgan's orders because of her master telling her, you must follow her orders. So I'm with you. I really did enjoy this flight battle, I should say. And it was pretty cool for Ahsoka to step out and use lightsabers to take down some space fighters.
So yeah, I was just going to read this from our guy Matt Ramsey. He says they were going for a World War II aerial battle kind of vibe, tail gunners and all.
Point.
And that is generally the Lucas way, right? Like that's always been his thought of how these fights work. Until you step outside and you're just in outer space floating around. So I immediately thought of Leia being able to use the Force to be in outer space. Obviously, she didn't quite wear the whole suit, but like the Ahsoka scene outside of the spaceship, like we've seen Ahsoka in the cartoons do some crazy shit, like where the all the ships are crashing into that planet, and she's jumping ship to ship. Incredible, but inside an atmosphere, right? Like, so this is her outside of atmosphere. And I always just think back to the George Lucas, like, he always talks about this of like, I don't care about science and physics. They don't matter in my universe. however it works to make the story go along, as long as I'm consistent, it's
Yeah.
fine. And I kind of love that. So here's another example. Ahsoka's running around on a spaceship in outer space, but it looked cool. I mean, what did you think about this?
I did like it a lot. I thought it was pretty badass to be on the tail of the ship, to spin around. Like, the ship doesn't have gravity, so as soon as Neil deGrasse Tyson's gonna have a field day with this scene. As soon as she jumps off the ship, she's just be floating right in that direction and spinning, never getting back on the ship. Especially the ship has no power, so there's no machine to create artificial gravity. But no, to your point, to suspend belief, it was awesome. She took down one ship using her lightsabers before having to float back on.
Yeah, I mean, her cutting that, it just had the vibe of Rey from whichever the last
Rise of Skywalker. Come on, man.
Where she cuts off the wing of Kylo Ren's ship. Like, it had that vibe. It was, and that's a great scene. I mean, like, you could say what you want about that movie, but like, that scene is incredible. So this looked really good. I did kind of laugh. Like, I was like, there's been people like, why does she have like a form-fitting spacesuit? You know, and it's just like, and like, part of it is like explained away as like, hey, she's got to be able to do Jedi stuff in this thing. Of course, she's going to have a form-fitting spacesuit. And then the other piece of you is like, it's also Rosario Dawson. You ain't putting Rosario Dawson in a puffy suit, all right? It's just not happening. So I like that. I like the scene though, and it was cool to have the back and forth of this going on and Sabine trying to fix the ship and Sabine seeing what happens, right? And still being absolutely amazed by Ahsoka. I think that gets lost sometimes in these shows because we see Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader or Ahsoka or all of the, or Count Dooku, where it's the most powerful Jedi and they're doing all this stuff and you're just kind of like, of course they can do that. But like, if you kind of put yourself in that moment, someone chopping a wing off of a spaceship in space should be insane. And I'm glad that they took the moment to go like, Sabine looked up at that like, I forgot what I'm doing right now because this is just insanity. So I do like that, that they did that. Now they get to the planet, but on their way to the planet, we get the Purrgil. Yep. I was so pumped for this, like when you saw them, because they're cool in animation. Mm-hmm. And obviously this is also animation, but this is more live action looking. They looked incredible. And they're so huge and they're so majestic. I mean, Josh, you were just whale watching. So like, how did this compare?
So in recent years, I've seen humpback whales in Cabo and I've seen humpback whales in Juneau. Obviously, huge difference in climate and environments from Cabo, Mexico to Juneau, Alaska. But it just tells that story of just how far the migration is for humpback whales. And for Purrgil, what it got me thinking as they go through this field of Purrgil, and again, how dangerous these creatures could be. Yes, they are very majestic, but those that have been flying in space for a very long time, especially through hyperspace lanes in Star Wars lore, they are afraid of Purrgil because they will cut through hyperspace lanes and you will die flying at the speed of light into a Purrgil. Like, what a great way to go. It got me thinking, though, watching these Purrgil, are they like humpback whales? And with their migration, it's not from planet to planet, Chirizi. It's from galaxy to galaxy. And that's how their migration works. And that's how the Night Sisters found this other galaxy and created this map. And that's the importance of the Purrgil here. If they want to jump to another galaxy, you got to follow the Purrgil. Like, that's what got me thinking after this Field of Purrgil scene.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we see the giant hyperspace ring that they're building, right? And it's designed to be able to jump as far as the Purrgil can jump. And it sounds like it should work, right? That feels like it's they're going to get to where they want to go. the question I have is how are Ahsoka and Sabine going to get where they're trying to go? And it feels like there's two options now. So at first, the only option that I could think of was they're somehow going to get on the ship with Morgan and Baylan and Shin. The Purrgil are kind of an option now.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would do this, but like it seems like if they could somehow attach themselves to one of these Purrgil as it jumps, you have no idea where it's going to go. Like you're not programming it.
Right.
So good luck. But like that feels like they might be building a secondary option there. I do think that like the one other piece with the Purrgil that I did like was that when Sabine and Ahsoka see them, you could tell that there is some kind of sign of joy here because it's like, okay, we're absolutely on the right track to find Ezra.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, probably also to find Thrawn. That's not good, but at least I think they feel themselves getting closer to Ezra. What do you think? Do you think that this could be the way that they get there, or do you think that this is just symbolic of like, okay, we're going the right way?
I think it's plausible. I definitely do think it's plausible that they hitch a ride with one of these Purrgils and jump galaxies, which that will be a first time in Star Wars lore that we would be jumping galaxies. Like, we've learned so much about the outer ring of this particular galaxy that Star Wars, this story, resides in. To jump a galaxy would be amazing. And I think that would be the only option, really. But with this ship, the Eye of
Sion, I think it was.
Yeah, Eye of Sion. It's large enough that not only do I think it could jump hyperspace, using hyperspace to jump galaxies, they may be able to bring ships with them,
Well,
like the Ron Star Destroyer, right?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I'm wondering how that works because it looks like obviously Morgan's ship is attached to the top and it's just a very small piece. Mm-hmm. How many ships can dock on this thing? Right. It's very possible that they have to have a lot of docking stations so that they could bring back whatever Thrawn has. And if that's the case, yeah, I mean, like Ahsoka could just sneak that ship on there right as they're leaving, and head out with them. But how close do you think we are to seeing that? Like, do you think that is next episode, or you think we're still a few episodes away? Because I feel like there's stuff from the trailer where we're still on that planet next episode.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some type of lightsaber duel with Baylan. Like, if we're going to try to make guesses right now of what we're going to see in the next episode, I think we're getting our first duel of Ahsoka and Baylan. And I think it ends up being a stalemate. We learn more about the background of Baylan. Ahsoka will ask, why'd you turn to the dark side? And Baylan will make it clear to Ahsoka it's not that simple and you should know. And we'll get a very fun battle. Maybe we get another fun battle between Shin and Sabine. But eventually, because of the stalemate, Baylan and Shin leave the planet. They join the Eye of Sion. And Ahsoka again fails. And I think she may get more frustrated about the whole ordeal, but they must follow them. And maybe my guess is that we see Ahsoka use the Force to help manipulate one of the Purrgil in tracking that ship.
That'd be cool.
Because episode 5 is the really long one. I thought that Dave Filoni is directing, and it's like the only episode he's directing.
So that's got to be the Thrawn episode.
That's got to be the Thrawn.
That's got to be they find Thrawn. So next episode, I'm going to give you a couple things. You already knocked two of them out, right? Like, so we're going to see Baylan and Ahsoka fight. We're going to see Shin and Sabine fight. Does Marok finally get killed in this episode? He's bound for death. Like, there's his head's getting cut off. Is it this episode, or does he last longer?
You know what? I think it is the next episode. I think Ahsoka beats him, and then it's time for the duel with Baylan. But like, I sense Chirizi, Baylan doesn't necessarily want to fight Ahsoka, if that makes sense.
I'm with you.
Like, there's conflict there.
I think he's kind of the mind of like, let's just go get Thrawn. Like, let's avoid confrontation with her. He's the Ziono of of this group. Of like, I don't want to fuck with that. Let's just leave. I want to go. Let's go get Thrawn, and then once we're real powerful, then we could deal with her. Or let her just be off to the side. So okay. So Murrow gets killed. Do we see Hu Yang fight? He's got the Grievous arms, man. It feels like a waste if we don't get to see him fight.
Yeah, that's a good. Oh, I hope you're right with that because there's lightsabers. Ahsoka's got extra lightsabers.
There was a whole bunch of lightsabers in there. They opened up
great.
that door. It looked like Billy from not 48 Hours, from Beverly Hills Cop when they went to his house in part 2 and he's got just like that huge arsenal. That's what that little training thing looked like. There's a ton of shit there.
Okay, I like that a lot.
Hu Yang's ready to go down. Okay, so we're gonna have Hu Yang fight, and then last, what is Hera doing during all this? We got a whole episode next week. Hera's basically grounded. What is she gonna do?
I think maybe there's another meeting with the Supreme Chancellor, and she personally gets permission to follow Ahsoka and Sabine. Can't bring an entire crew, but she can take Chopper, she could take the Ghost, she could take Jason, and she can go on this wild goose chase.
I like it. I like if Hu Yang somehow gets word back, like, hey, there's this big thing getting built out here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's enough to say, okay, you get a scout team, and then we get Zeb, we get Chopper, we get Trapper Wolf, right? Like so I feel like we could get a few like kind of Easter eggish characters.
Getting the band back together.
That'd be fun. So I'm down with that. I think that's kind of all we wanted to cover today. I think there's a lot to unpack in future episodes, but this one was just kind of an exciting episode that it bridged us to the next piece. Any final words on it, Josh?
No, I enjoyed this episode. I think we're in good hands so far, and it's really building up anticipation. Like, we know Thrawn is coming, when Thrawn is coming, and how Thrawn comes. I think we're all excited to see.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Next episode's Tuesday, so it's coming quick. Talk to you soon.